Hey folks, Phil from the future here. The recommended round for this video is easily round 4 versus Death and Taxes. It's one of the best matches of Magic that I've played in the past month or two. Enjoy. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And if there's one thing I'm known for, it's probably testing out cards to see whether or not they're good, instead of just assuming they're good or bad. So sometimes we play some crazy things on this channel, and some of them work and some of them don't. Let's take a look at today's deck list. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and the funding for the video itself comes from Marcel H., who actually won a local tournament with one of the decks that I played on this channel. They took my Soldier Stompy deck list from, I think, the tail end of November to a first place in their local event. So congrats to you, and thank you for supporting my content with a dealer's choice. And today I am walking into this video with an assumption. I don't really think this is a legacy playable card, but I would like to see if I'm wrong. Nadaar, Selfless Paladin is a legendary Dragon Knight 3/3 Vigilance. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to venture into the dungeon. Other creatures you control also get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. This is a 3/1 deck list from a preliminary from user X file. I have only changed a single card here. I got rid of one copy of Caracas for one more basic planes because I thought just playing two basics was kind of cheating it a little bit in terms of the number needed to make sure that you still get another planes if you need it from the initiative trigger. Now, once previously, I played Radiant Solar on this channel, and if memory serves, I 5-0'd in that video, although the Radiant Solar wasn't necessarily responsible for most of the wins, like the White Plume Adventurers and the Seasoned Dungeoneers were. So my question for today is, what if we go deeper on those effects? What if I am playing something that lets me go one extra room through the Undercity every turn? Is that going to be good? This card does have some things working for it, mostly the fact that it only has a single white in its cost, so you can play it off of an Ancient Tomb and a single white source. And we're gonna put in the reps, we're gonna put in the work, and we're gonna see whether or not this card is playable. I think this card is probably just worse than running extra copies of other staples that are in this deck list, be it Archon of Ameria or Swords to Plowshares or whatever. But we'll find out. We'll gather some data. I think that's really important. Use your whole scientific method. Make your hypothesis, test it, and then examine the results. So we're gonna try to do that today. As far as the sideboard goes, I do want to highlight one card here that you may or may not be familiar with, depending on how closely you're following Legacy. And that's Archon of Absolution. This is a 3/2 pro-white creature with creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each one of those creatures. This is something that is a pro-white creature for the mirror, while also making attacking just a little bit more awkward for decks seeking to take back the initiative from you. Since we're not playing something like, say, Chalice of the Void in the main deck, and that's been relegated to the sideboard instead, our Game 1 versus combo will be a little bit worse, and to make up for that, we are maxing out on the playset of both Elite Spellbinder and Anointed Peacekeeper, and that should help bridge that gap a little bit. Now, there is one awkward thing here. If we enter a dungeon that is not the Undercity, before entering the Undercity, we don't actually go into the Undercity when we take the initiative. We will be in whatever other dungeon we went in. So that's something that can be incredibly awkward about this card, and part of the reason why I'm so skeptical about this being playable. But let's see how it goes. If you're new here and you like what you see, or you're a regular who hasn't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I'm looking to get those numbers up a little bit for reasons that I can't currently talk about. And if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. This is one of the easiest ways to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay, I will be keeping my hand here. I have a turn 2 potentially uncounterable White Plume Adventurer. We're paired against a Yorion deck, so if this is Death and Taxes, I'm facing down Wasteland, and if this is a blue deck, I'm facing down Counterspells, and I have to make my decision whether or not I want to play this land now or this land now. And it's like play around Wasteland or play around Counterspell. I don't really think Death and Taxes is super playable right now. I think I'm going to do the thing that you can do when you're playing online that you can't do when you're playing in person easily, and that's take a look at what my opponent is known for online, if anything. No results on my opponent. Oh, nope, I typoed. Opponent's last finish is with a blue deck. Fantastic. A Displacer Kitten combo deck. So that means I am probably going to just lead with this on Cleric, despite the fact that that's a little bit awkward for my mana later, because like this is a Dragon Knight, this is a human warrior. As a City of Traders of my opponent's own. And that is a Force of Negation here. I'm expecting that my opponent is about to play a Hull Breacher on my end step, and then attempt to go for some sort of Days Undoing nonsense. I can choose to Elite Spellbinder them if I want to try and disrupt that, but I'm not actually guaranteed to stop anything here, which is awkward. I can make it cost 2 more, but my opponent can like play another Soul Land or an LED and ignore what I'm about to do. Given that, I think I just go this route. Grab a basic Plains, pass the turn. Alright, there's the Hull Breacher. And we'll see if my opponent has a Days Undoing or an Echo. Got an Urza's Saga. Definitely scary. They do unfortunately have the Days Undoing. They get a very large number of treasure tokens. They're not attacking their Hull Breacher in. I am going to forge up my creature. I've got to kind of try to end this game in a relatively narrow window. So let's get in there. I can untap this, so my opponent isn't necessarily just going to take the initiative back. But I don't really like playing the light disruption card next turn when my opponent can play around it with so many draws. Yep. Sucks for me. Large number of treasure tokens go into the graveyard here, and this is just going to be Mycosynth Lattice potentially. Another Echo. Sure. My opponent can easily win from here a whole bunch of different ways. Alright, they're just going to keep echoing. That's fine. Alright. Karn Tutoring is happening. There is a Lattice. More stuff is happening. Sure. Spellbomb is very good. At this point, I'm probably comfortable just conceding here. Like, my opponent has the initiative with a Karn and a Mycosynth Lattice in play. That was a very good turn. Again, I don't know whether or not this card would have successfully stopped my opponent from having the turn that they just had. Any Ancient Tomb or LED or even, I think, Land plus Lotus Petal would have played around that. So, like, I am comfortable with the line that I took, even though it didn't work out for me. Okay, Chalice on 0 seems reasonable here. Lauren seems reasonable here. Radiant Solar seems far too slow for this matchup in terms of actually hard casting it. And I have to be in a dungeon first for this other ability to have text. From here, what are my cuts? I need 5. 5 is a lot. 5 is a lot. I basically can't cut disruptive things, because my opponent's deck isn't actually very good at winning, so if I knock them off balance, like, I have a lot of time to kill them. It may just be that this is my cut here. Like, this stuff is actively good, Thalia is actively good, White Plume and Seasoned Dungeoneer are actively good, Solitude is actively good. So, unfortunately, the cool card that I want to test is not great in this matchup. I do think I will be keeping this in the vast majority of games, because, like, I'm not meant to sideboard that many cards in a lot of cases. And I probably just go down 1 initiative card of some nature. This is not a reasonable hand. Isn't really a reasonable hand either, but given circumstances, this is a keep. I am very unsure which card goes back. I think I need to keep all my mana here. I am furthest away from casting Lauren, but Lauren is going to have a billion D targets over there. I probably just have to get rid of the card that I am furthest away from casting, though. Alright, so we will start this game with a Chalice on 0, and then I will promptly draw Chrome Mox or Lotus Petal for my next turn. and be sad about it. I don't think I'm going to shock to hold up Swords on turn 1. Like, Swords on turn 1 matters if I don't have this Chalice, but otherwise it shouldn't matter the vast majority of the time. So, now we will deploy some light taxation effects. Totally happy trading 2 for 1 here. Okay, yeah, and there indeed is a Displacer Kitten. Alright, regular land drop. Okay, sure. Into just mutual refreshing of hands. This is good for me. So this always goes on Cleric. And I think I disrupt rather than play an initiative card here. So let's go with an Anointed Peacekeeper. Opponent has 5 mana next turn. Force of Wills aren't doing a lot currently unless I have to Solitude. I think I just name Karn here. Awkward leaving my opponent with both Hull Breacher and Echo, but I can take one of those out next turn. Just puts my opponent in an awkward position where their Planeswalker can't get them an Ensnaring Bridge or whatever that they can hide behind. Then I can Elite Spellbinder away. They played the land that they drew rather than the Ancient Tomb. 2, 3, 4, 5. I can have 6 mana. I can double Uncounterable Cleric this turn if that's something that I would like to do. Requires pitching Solitude, which is awkward. I guess I'm going to start by seeing if my opponent wants to trade with this creature in combat. I would be okay with making that trade, I think. I can also just leave up Uncounterable Solitude by putting this on Elemental. Not sure which way to play this. The fact that I know my opponent has Force of Will makes this pretty awkward. If I name Force of Will with Elite Spellbinder, well, I guess then my opponent couldn't Hull Breacher with Protection. I can also just let my opponent Echo and just have 3 creatures in play very reasonably. Oh, I can't Chrome Mox. I wasn't taking that into account. Yeah, if I can't do Uncounterable Solitude at all this turn, you know, I will actually just go ahead and do this. Oh, they're going the Plane Cycling route. Okay. Now I can just keep that Hull Breacher from getting in play. Or I can just take the Force of Will, and then if my opponent attempts to Timeless Dragon, I just Solitude the Timeless Dragon out of the way. I haven't made my land drop yet. I can just do Uncounterable Solitude next turn, though. Yeah, let's take Hull Breacher. And then I'll just make, like, Caracas as a land drop here. Off turn. Not sure that I played it right. So I'm expecting this Timeless Dragon to come into play this turn. Like, my opponent has searched up another white source. I can try to use this to stabilize the board versus these creatures. Oh wow, they're going with Yori into hand. That's fine. They take a bit of a beating for doing that. This is 6 damage now. And presumably lethal damage next turn. Cleric is uncounterable. Venture into the Undercity, pick up another basic. In case my opponent randomly hardcasts, they're just like dead if they hardcast an Echo though. Oh, I think I'm still going to put this into play on Elemental, because resolving an Solitude would be very, very, very important in some circumstances here. I don't really see my opponent's path to victory clearly here. Analyzing that is fine. Go to the Forge. I think I forge my Vigilant creature. Although maybe I just forge the White Plume, because like if something gets bounced, I want it to be this creature. Current plan is play Plains, play Uncounterable Solitude, leave up Caracas. And that draw doesn't change that. Uncounterable, nice Force of Will. Opponent goes to 12. They are still technically alive. They will be taking 11 damage here. Going to 1. Untap a 5/5. Dorian is not a real blocker. We should very much have this covered. I don't think anything is going to change on the draw. I could consider playing Leyline of the Void to stop turn 1 Echo. So for example, like Thalia is not really great on the draw here. My opponent is just going to deploy all their artifact mana before that matters. So maybe on the draw, I do want to stop Echo. My creature count would be 21. Is definitely low. If I do this, Cavern can almost always be on Cleric and almost never needs to be on Human. Alright. The plan here is don't die. Don't die is an acceptable plan. With 1 land, I would have kept the absolute shit out of this hand. Now I have to think about whether or not I want to keep a 0-lander. It's a very good 0-lander, but I don't think this is acceptable. This is a better hand. Chalice is happening on turn 1. Maria's Call goes back here. Like, my opponent can just get me on turn 1. Like, that's a thing that happens here some portion of the time. If they have Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Blue Card, Hull Breacher, LED, and Echo. Oh, they're just straight up going for a Days Undoing for a reset. Sure. Not sure that I Chrome Mox here. I think I need to hold Swords to Plowshares to pitch to Solitude in my hand with this as it is right now. I think this is actually Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, play Lauren. Lauren blows up a Chrome Mox. I believe I do play out this Lotus Petal in case my opponent randomly echoes again, but I think this is where I pass the turn, because if I don't have to use these, I don't want to here. Like, I want to save that decision for as long as possible. Okay, now I've got to fire off my choice. This is my land drop for turn. I think this means that I'm pitching Solitude. Let's Chrome Mox. Pitch Solitude. I will do this pre-combat for sure. Just informs my attack step. So that is an Echo and an LED. And a Narset. Opponent doesn't have anything that they can play in this turn. They have a lot of options for the next turn. Would I like to make more expensive? Needs to be one of Narset, Echo, and LED. Otherwise my opponent just goes Narset, Echo, LED next turn. Probably Narset. Opponent could still Hull Breacher. I could just make Echo cost 5 from Graveyard. Not bad unless my opponent draws another LED though. So ignoring the Yorion there, I think I'm going to name the Narset. I just don't want my opponent to sculpt their hand with that. We're basically going to ignore the portion of the text here where Lauren makes us both draw a card. I don't think I'm interested in activating that in this matchup. There's too many ways that it can go wrong. Placer Kitten is acceptable. I think I just wait towards that on my turn so I don't have to use Lotus Petal. Let's get you out of the way. Bash in for 5 Vigilant damage. Opponent's at 11. Now even if my opponent kind of executes a combo, it's not the end of the world here for me. Another Displacer Kitten. That's scary. Do I need to draw here? I might need to draw here. Next turn my opponent plays LED into Fairy and probably goes Infinite. Second Displacer Kitten's super unfortunate. Alright, let's each take an extra card. Fuck yeah. Elite Spellbinder too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total mana, so I don't get to do both. I just take this out of the way. And I will pay extra life here. Do not lose the Lotus Petal in case I need it later. Alright, this is 5 more damage. Meaning that next turn is lethal a good portion of the time, especially considering this. The Fairy Bounce can probably keep my opponent alive for a turn. The 5 mana Narset? Okay. Oh, fuck, that's a really good draw. Okay. Not really the way I expected this turn to go, but it's the way that it's going. So my opponent gets to refresh and draw 7. But they're doing so with 8 points of damage on the board. So this is significantly less safe than previously. Doesn't mean that, like, nothing bad can happen, but they need a lot here. Timeless Dragon under there. Okay, Swords is good. You can find another Swords and take out another creature, and then they're not facing down lethal anymore. The same is true of a Teferi. A Teferi bounce means that lethal isn't happening. Okay. That's not bad. I will be casting that here. I think I just send both these at my opponent so Ancient Tomb can't be tapped for mana. Yeah, because the Narset's not dying unless my opponent wants the Narset to die anyway. Let's just go ahead and make my trade like so. Opponent's at 2. Ow. Oh, I should have done that pre-combat. That was a mistake on my end. Because this also gives Indestructible. So that was an error on my end. I could still have a Solitude in play. I have cast this like twice. my history of playing Legacy. There's a Arn. Presumably like an ensnaring bridge to keep my opponent alive. Oh, it's an LED. That seems a little greedy, but okay. Or they don't have bridge, but it seems like they should have bridge. I don't know, maybe they couldn't go Hellbent. Okay. Or Echo. No big deal. There's a Displacer Kitten. And my opponent is dead. GG's. I made some small errors there, but it ended up working out. I think if... I don't know. I'd have to like really go back and look and see whether or not my opponent could have gone for an ensnaring bridge based on their hand size and whatnot.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. This is the place where I keep all of my deck lists, and I really love the fact that I can sort these just so efficiently into folders because I make a lot of deck lists, folks, and knowing like where these decks are is very valuable for me, as well as my viewers who are trying to hunt down, my EDH decks, legacy decks, or whatever. I love this place as a deck hosting website, and please consider checking them out.
Okay, my hand has a single mana source, so this one is an auto mulligan. This is an awkward hand that is going to be a keep. Let's assume variety is better than just hitting my opponent with 3 elite spellbinders in a row. Although this card is really not going to be good immediately. We're on the draw versus reanimator. That is not good. Alright, so there's the looting to put a creature into the graveyard. We technically have an answer to a creature here. So we're not fully dead to something like an Archon, but a Grizzlebrand probably beats us. Oh, that grief is brutal. I'm not going to concede here to it, but that takes the Swords to Plowshares that wasn't out to Sarah's Emissary. But Sarah's Emissary isn't in play yet. So I will show my opponent what we're on. The 4th Elite Spellbinder. Hello. We do have outs to Sarah's Emissary getting into play. We have Swords to Plowshares and Solitude. I have 1 more Swords to Plowshares. I have 4 copies of Solitude. Is this legendary? Not legendary. So Karakas isn't an out. Okay, I lost Elite Spellbinder, and then my opponent brought it back. So these 2 cards enter simultaneously, meaning that my opponent has protection from creatures by the time that this would go on this stack. Is this Nadaar, or is this Elite Spellbinder? If I draw an initiative creature next turn, is there any dungeon that has an out for a Sarah's Emissary? I think there's one that sacrifices creatures. Actually, I'm not gonna look them up ahead of time, but I think one of them does this. Oh, I sacrifice a creature. That's no removal. That's no removal. This can stop an attack for 1 turn. I guess I can work towards maybe doing something with Twisted Caverns. Yeah, the gulf in power level between the initiative and all of the other dungeons is absolutely insane. This or attacks or does damage? Attacks. Alright. Yeah, for 2 mana. Oh, sure. Just make another grief. That's perfectly reasonable. I'm on like a 1-outer. I have 1 more main deck, Swords to Plowshares. I can attack with this to scry 1. That's where we're at. Bottom. You have protection from creatures. Block. Yeah. Yeah, that was... There was no trick. There was no trick. This is me looking for my 1-outer. Alright, I'm taking 10. And, like, this is the problem with this card. If you're not in the Undercity already, this is rough. 1-outer, here we go. I can venture. This does buy me a turn. This does buy me a turn. Oh, Twisted Caverns. Alright, you don't get to attack this turn. This whole you and creatures you control have protections from creatures is absolutely brutal. Means I can't do combat damage in case that wasn't already abundantly clear. Alright. Grief rocks me a little bit. That's not Swords to Plowshares. I will unfortunately have to concede here. GG's. Yeah, on the draw versus Reanimator, not a good place to be. Leyline and Chalice of the Void will be coming in here. Leyline is fantastic. Chalice is kind of whatever. Radiant Solar is something that I discard and put it into the graveyard. That's not really where I want to be. Is it Nadaar again? Is it Nadaar again? Any of these cards, and I can consider playing Lauren as something that can blow up a Serenity. That's not crazy either, because like that's going to be a major card that can beat me. This would be 9 cards. It feels like it's probably something like 4, 8, and I don't know what the 9th one is. Maybe a mid-rangey matchup where I can make this shine. But against combo decks, I just need every card that has disruptive text in my deck, no matter what it is. I go down 1 White Plume. Normally you don't have like the full 8 of these, so things are weird here. Alternatively, I can just take out a Swords or something. Like, when I'm on the play, playing this as just something that can scale and potentially outpressure my opponent's life total is reasonable. But I just want to play all these hate bear things, like chalices and such, first. I don't know, maybe on the play I don't need 2 Lauren. Take 1. The hand's a keep. I have to figure out how I'm playing it, but the hand is absolutely a keep. I think White Plume's going under Chrome Mox. I think I want a Chalice on 1 on turn 1, putting White Plume under there so that my opponent can't take it somehow and reanimate it. I think this is my opener into Chalice. Alright, Chrome Mox, pitch that. Ganjo. This shuts off most of the easiest ways for my opponent to get a creature into their own graveyard. Okay, my opponent has no play. They might be trying to go up to 8 cards in hand to manually discard. I only get to play 1 of my cards this turn. I believe it's actually supposed to be Elite Spellbinder over Thalia, so that my opponent can't manually discard to hand size in this turn cycle. I think I'm okay dealing damage to myself. Doesn't seem like that's super relevant. Yeah, opponent was absolutely... Yeah, that's right. That's right. Alright, on the draw, I want this second Lauren, I think, over 1 White Plume. Again, I don't want my opponent to, like, Thoughtseize my initiative creature and then reanimate it. This has a ley line against Reanimator. I will be keeping this. I do have opening hand actions. Okay. This potentially means show and tell is something that I have to be thinking about. Alright, opponent has a Grief. They can just reanimate 1 of my creatures, but it's not like my creatures are great here. Alright, my opponent has taken my play that I can do earlier in the... Wow. Okay. Understood. So it seems like my opponent... I guess I can look at the Grief. It seems like my opponent probably kept a hand. Oh, they're just gonna reanimate? You're gonna reanimate and take my Source of Plowshares? Okay. This will cost 3 mana. That's totally fine. I am going to show my opponent a land that I just drew, but I want this land in hand if anything random happens to my creature. We're not in any danger of dying to Elite Spellbinder. I love my position right now. Like, I'll take some damage in the short term, but... Oh. A spell cast this way. Okay, so I can just Source of Plowshares this in this turn cycle. Not expecting counterspells from my opponent. So I'll let them go to combat first in case they randomly like play a show and tell first or something. I guess they really can't on that amount of mana. Alright, get out. Yeah, and now we're going to reach the part of the game where I just do my thing. This is now on Cleric. This is uncounterable. Haha. Get out, Serenity. Nice. Another thing that's kind of cool here is I have a Swords to Plowshares hanging out in exile right now that I can cast for 3 mana, but that my opponent can't take with discard. Alright, good stuff. Anointed Peacekeeper is cool. Bash in for 3. My opponent to 17. Go ahead and play this. My opponent's got Animate Dead in hand. I don't really care about that card. They can get a Thalia, that doesn't matter right now. I think I'm actually just supposed to name Serenity. This Leyline can't leave play. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. I'm not really concerned with most of the rest of what my opponent can do. I don't know, maybe Serenity already costing 4 is enough, but like Dark Ritual is a card that exists. Could have named Show and Tell here. That would be another good name, I think. But they're pretty far away from Show and Tell, and I'm attacking for at least 6 a turn, maybe more if I draw like Seasoned Dungeoneer. Or I'm not going to draw Seasoned Dungeoneer, that's a bad example. It's another one. Alright, bash in for 6. Opponent goes to 11. The stream of Anointed Peacekeepers will continue. Opponent has a Grief, I don't care about that. Show and Tell. I could name something crazy like Virtue's Ruin, but my opponent... I don't know, my opponent doesn't have mana to cast Show and Tell either, so... I think we're in garbage time here. Also just not crazy to name the red-black fetch land. But again, I don't think it matters. Yeah, Delta's fine. You can animate Dead Mythalia as a chump blocker. It doesn't really change the clock, and I can just bounce it back to my hand and then redeploy it, and that's actively good for me. Yeah, I think my opponent just realized that. GG's. Alright, round 3. We're 2-0. Dar hasn't done anything cool yet. Here's to hoping that changes so that people don't get mad at me when this card's in the thumbnail. I think this hand is too fair. This is a turn 2 initiative creature. I need a little bit more mana, but I think this is a keep. Probably Anointed Peacekeeper going back, but given my low amount of mana, Seasoned Dungeoneer could be worse. I think I am going to pitch this one. I don't think I want a Thalia on turn 1. I just want to do this and pass the turn. I don't think I want to show Lotus Petal yet. Lotus Petal's bad. Like, not playing Lotus Petal is bad versus Chalice on 0. Playing Lotus Petal is good versus Thoughtseize. An Elvish Reclaimer. Alright, so we know what's up. We will play out our mana sources. Drop an initiative creature. Conveniently, we do have... Honestly, I thought I'd be facing some Wild Brew. There is spice here. Don't worry. Alright, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, Karakas. Already having Karakas in play is very good here, because it means that we're more resilient versus a potential Merit Lodge coming in. Oh, shit, it's Elves. Thought we were facing down Merit Lodge nonsense. I was wrong. Alright, am I forging it up here? Elves is traditionally pretty good versus this deck. I think I am forging it up. Otherwise, my attacks get bad very quickly. Need one more mana. Always attacking. And we'll see whether or not my opponent wants to chump. I think the answer is a resounding no, but I've been wrong before. Get to untap White Plume. During my upkeep, I can absolutely lose the initiative this turn. It comes at a very high cost, but it is a thing that can occur. Any 1-drop creatures here are pretty much free. Grist is incredibly strong. Opponent can sacrifice their Fyndhorn Helves to kill my White Plume Adventurer. Yeah, that is what's happening. And now, another Fiend Artisan. Now they can send in 2 of these creatures and sacrifice 1 to take the initiative. I probably can't beat 2 Fiend Artisans sitting on the board at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and first strike this creature away while I can. And my opponent gets a basic land. This becomes a 3/3, which does protect the Grist. I would love to draw a land. That will help me a lot. Thank you, I needed that. Oh no, this isn't actually... This Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, Wizard. This is a Soldier. So while this was a good draw, not perfect, it doesn't actually get me to the point where I get to kill Grist. Alright. So we grind. Do I want to arena one of my opponent's small creatures? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 mana required. My opponent can just plus Grist, and they have 4, 5, 6. They can just activate this. Arena is not actually enticing. It might actually make my opponent make a better play. Rough. Although I don't think my opponent would miss a play that's that easy. Right, there's the insect. Oh, there is 5. I have a family. What is the X value here? X is 9. That's just a hoof. All right. I am unfortunately comfortable conceding there. I have very few reasonable sideboard cards for this matchup. I can play Chalice, but the Fiend Artisan Elves is very much built in a way that it's less susceptible to some of the things that are traditionally good versus Elves, such as Chalice of the Void and Plague Engineer. So that's a thing. I can play Archon of Absolution if I want for the, like, what do they call it, like a Ghostly Prison effect. Not even sure if I'm supposed to play the Chalice. Like, it's so embarrassing if I play if I lead on a Chalice and then my opponent just either plays or Green Suns for an Allosaurus Shepherd. This is a matchup where this card definitely is staying in, though. Like, it is a 3/3 Vigilance that is a decent size, and turboing through the dungeon sounds good. I don't think I'm interested in Radiant Solar, though. Thalia is not really great either. The card that I traditionally cut when I'm playing Death and Taxes versus Elves. This is a bit of a non-bow. I think I'm going to do Chalice and 1 Archon on the play, and probably get rid of all of the Chalices when I'm on the draw. This is a single mana source. Despite the fact that I have 3 removal spells, I don't think I can reasonably keep that. This doesn't have enough mana to be functional. We will be going to 5. Easily the best hand so far. So this is 1, 2. This is my turn 1. This is a keep. This land is going back, and then a little trickier from there. I kind of need true white mana. I don't really want to shock myself, but I don't know that I can just keep Cavern and then not be able to cast this. So I am going to keep the land that hurts me. And let's see whether or not this actually buys me time. Again, this can do literally nothing. Alright, Once Upon a Time is very reasonable. Finding Allosaurus Shepherd. Good Chalice. Yeah. Deck, please. Okay. I mean, we lost this one. It's okay. I have to take the Green Sun here. That was rough. Like the Allosaurus Shepherd into me drawing another Chalice is just peak comedy. Yeah. Oh, and another Finhorn Elves. Am I trading with that? Feels like I'm trading with that. I am not the beatdown at 13 life. Okay, so I can play this and use it to make another land drop. And I have a reasonable sequence here of White Plume into Seasoned Dungeoneer. But my opponent is going to go very wide of what I'm doing. Yeah, so they're going to throw away 1 creature to take the initiative, which gives them a land drop, which basically replaces the Finhorn Elves that they just lost. I say basically because, like, cards like Gaia's Cradle and such are real later on. Alright. Oh, then it's a Dryad Arbor instead of the forest that I expected. Ow. Alright, Seasoned Dungeoneer. Means I do get to take my initiative back. I am still going to Forge. Gotta spiral this out of control very fast before my opponent just, like, finds a Wirewood and starts... Fuck! Yeah. Anyway, if you're wondering why Elves is good against initiative, this is a great showcase of that. Okay, there's the forest. Absolutely fucking brutal. Yeah, so then this Elvish Visionary gets sacrificed to kill Seasoned Dungeoneer. My opponent gets to attack in with this one, take the initiative. They can go down either side, and I think either side beats me handily. They're going for the oomph. Go to 5 with White Plume. Take the initiative, trap my opponent. I don't think this is leading to a victory here. Oh yeah, my opponent just attacks me all out. Loses a creature. Trap happens, I die. Alright, yeah. Alright, GG's. Okay, this is it. This is the game that tells me whether or not this card is going to be good. This hand is a snap keep. It's turn 1 White Plume into turn 2 Nadaar. Planes go, you say. That means that I'm playing both my Lotus Petals on turn 1 here. Potentially playing against Death and Taxes. See whether or not that's actually the case very quickly. But I am absolutely just playing an initiative card here. I want to make sure that I hit my land drop next turn. Alright, there's basic planes. If my opponent has an end of turn swords, no, that's great for me. Death and Taxes looks likely. Yep. Alright, so we will go to the Forge and try to stay aggressive here. We didn't eat a Solitude immediately in response to that trigger, so my opponent probably doesn't have one. It's probably correct to play Seasoned Dungeoneer over Nadaar this turn, because they basically do the same thing, but Seasoned Dungeoneer adds more power. This gets me one more deeper, but is very bad versus Caracas. It feels like this one's correct. I will go ahead and trap my opponent. This also means that I don't have to use my Solitude immediately to remove Lion Sash to continue to push damage, which seems really important. Absolutely not. Sorry, Thalia. Alright, opponent is at 19. Doesn't feel like my opponent can really play a Thalia right now, so I'm going to ignore playing from Mox as, like, a reasonable line. And also just, like, pay a Thalia tax and then play an Nadaar next turn anyway. There's another Plains and a Skyclave Apparition. That's fine. Which one are you taking out? Which one? I think it has to be Seasoned Dungeoneer, by the fact that the White Plume is the significantly larger body. Opponent disagrees. Just feels like this trigger is brutal right now. I can do the Solitude on my turn, but if I do it now, I get to attack with this 3/3 creature. Pitch the Peacekeeper here. Take out this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, opponent is done with me. Let the record show, though, that this card would have accelerated me to Throne of the Dead 3 this turn if I either played it out or just cast it this turn. So, like, let's just take a quick look. So this would have been my draw, and then I would have gone to Throne of the Dead 3. So I would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I only would have hit a Spellbinder, but still quite good. I'll be making almost no changes here. I'd like to get the Thalias out of the deck list. So I'm probably boarding in 5. I might not be a crazy person to board these in. So Thalia's out. That gets me these first 4. From there, how am I feeling about Radiant Solar and some of these other hate bears? I think Nadaar stays in the deck, like, despite the fact that my opponent has 4 copies of Caracas in their deck. In the end game, 3 mana for a step through the initiative, getting me closer to Throne of the Dead 3 is probably fine. Is that true on the draw? Probably still true on the draw. Also, which is worse, Elite Anointed Peacekeeper or Elite Spellbinder? Probably Elite Spellbinder. Anointed Peacekeeper can mess with, like, vials and activated abilities that Spellbinder can't. The one Spellbinder is out for 1 Lauren for sure, and then it's just a question of, like, do I want to actually play some of these as ways to turbo through the dungeon and as very good endgame bombs? I think so. It may be like playing Nadaar and Radiant Solar at the same time is too many of, like, the same side of the deck list. Keep. Nadar's gonna kick ass this hand. Turn 1, White Plume, get a white land. Turn 2, Nadaar. Yeah, this is great. And it's, like, not gonna matter if my opponent removes White Plume. File's very good. Wild. That's some crazy art. Alright, Battle. And then let's drop White Plume. Alright, Nadaar, it's time. It's time. Pick up a basic, pass the turn. Would like to dodge Wasteland, I guess, but, like, Wastelanding when I have a White Plume in play is rough. I have to decide whether or not I want to Forge next turn. My opponent ports me, I want to Forge. I think I want to Forge. Still, my opponent uses white mana to remove this here. Then I actually get to play Nadaar on my turn. This is what I didn't want. Okay. This is acceptable. Now they port me. I just hope they don't have, like, a mom as well. That costs a little bit too much mana here. I have Thalia specifically to be thinking about, but I think I'd rather hide the fact that I have this Chromox. My opponent's pretty likely to have boarded out Thalia. I'm going to go ahead and just play a tapped land drop and pass the turn. Damn it. Alright, by not removing that mob, I tell my opponent that I do not have Solitude, so they are free to attack in here. Okay, yeah, we are going to run into the Karakas Nadaar situation that I described earlier. And my opponent is going to have Karakas up in this turn cycle. I think I'm pretty good moving forward, though, especially if my opponent commits their mana to progressing their own board in some way. As I do just have a bunch of protection from white creatures that tax my opponent in my hand. Oh, wow, that's really good. We will go land drop. These are going to stack. Chromox. Chromox Imprint, Seasoned Dungeoneer. Is all going to be very cute here, assuming that my opponent plays optimally. My opponent had to read this one very understandably. Yeah, my opponent says this is awkward. I will now trap my opponent, put them to 5, and I'm going to wait for my opponent to bounce this Nadaar at end of turn. And after they bounce this, I'm going to Solitude their Mother of Runes. Yeah. Nice. Now, do I Solitude pitching Nadaar, or do I just get rid of an Archon? I think I get rid of one Archon, despite the fact that these are really good, because this is something that I can play if my opponent taps down my Ancient Tomb again. We'll see if I get punished by my opponent having a really good 2-drop. They don't! Oh, weird. Oh, that's a strange interaction. So I ventured into the dungeon, but I didn't actually take the initiative. Wow. Okay, these mechanics interact in strange ways. I mean, it makes sense. I didn't actually take the initiative, I just ventured, which they're different. Okay, that's an important lesson. I now know that one forever. That alone might be a reason Nadaar is just like not good enough for Legacy, that it doesn't actually take initiative back. Okay, this is like Recruiter plus Flicker Wisp nonsense. That's very good. Yep, alright, there's the Flicker Wisp. They're gonna go for the immediate blinking, which presumably just gets another Flicker Wisp. We'll see. Alright, my opponent went for a Solitude. Second Nadaar is really not what I want to see here. But I get to put this Archon into play. And that's just around forever. So my next turn involves me taking the initiative with an Archon attack, and then playing Nadaar to complete the Undercity. Pile goes up to 4, presumably ticking towards Yorion. Opponent's not going to have good attacks this turn. Oh, Wasteland is incredibly good for them. They can Wasteland my probably Ancient Tomb, and then port me off one of my other white sources so I can't play Nadaar. Yep, that's very good. They can put Yorion to hand with 3 mana, and then use the treasure token to port me as well. I need to rip any land here. Yep. That'll count. That'll count. Alright. Attack you. This is pro-white. Can't be blocked. I take the initiative. Means I draw a card. Oh, that's awesome. Legitimately love that for me. Chromox. Imprint Nadaar. Nadaar, this is your fucking moment, my dude. My dude. My paladin. Oh, paladin, my paladin. Oh, shit. Solitude? Probably Solitude, given that Yorion is coming. Yeah. Flicker Wisp and Recruiter are problems for different reasons. I think I take Recruiter, though. I don't think I can just let my opponent fish whatever bullets they have for this matchup out of their deck. Alright. We'll see whether or not I continue to get ported. Yep. What happened with that land there? Nothing? Nothing happened with that land? Weird. Okay. Alright, the opponent's got a black creature now. Oh, Field of Ruin. Sure. Opponent kind of needs to Karakas this creature. Opponent also kind of needs to port me. Opponent also maybe needs to Flicker Wisp one of my creatures out of play. Oh, sorry. It was the one for Archon of Absolution. That's what it was. Sure. Another Solitude. That is interesting. So, awkwardly, I'm not in the Undercity right now, so I don't actually want to attack with this creature. Oh, that's strange. That probably means that I'm just attacking with these two. 7/6, yeah. Yeah, we'll attack with these two. Alright. Oh, it's a Solitude. Solitude junks my Solitude. That's okay. My opponent's about to Throne of the Dead 3, which is not great for me. So I take this back. Now means that I can play basic planes as my land for turn and drop another one of these Archons. When my opponent bounces my Nadaar end of turn, I can Solitude something else. Yep. Okay, yeah. So, what do I want to Solitude? I can just Solitude Mother Runes? I have to basically do it now while the Yorion is hanging out in exile. I can Solitude their lifelinker so they can't gain life, and I can just try to kill them in 2 turns. I'm to 13, including Forge. I'm good. Yeah. I think I go for the lifelinker. These Nadaar lines have been so fucking weird on both sides of the table. Alright, get out. Throne of the Dead 3 is going to be wild. Opponent takes some losses. Or no, they can attack with just the Menace skeleton without taking some losses on the attack. Oh, this game's been crazy. Recommended round for sure. I'm also secretly very happy that I put the 3rd basic planes into the deck right now. That, like, Field of Ruin isn't actually potentially taking me off a land. So I think that's on the lowest priority for things that my opponent needs to do right now. Yeah. So there's the payment for the Archon. I cannot block due to Menace. My opponent gets Throne of the Dead 3. And my opponent is going to have a lot of options. I basically don't want to take 18 damage next turn. They have their own Seasoned Dungeoneers. Okay. That's a big creature. It's a very big creature. Did I take 18 next turn? Maybe. Probably not with double Archon though. Right? It just physically costs too much to attack with that many creatures. Opponent can only attack with 3 creatures next turn. I could pretty easily take 16. Pretty easily take 16 next turn. Flicker Wisp is fine. Alright, what did that target? Targeting Emeria, Shattered Skyclave. Okay. Yorion does Yorion stuff. Yorion returns 2 Flicker Wisps. My opponent is just gonna attempt to tax my mana. That's reasonable. Yep. I just have to attack my opponent. I have them dead in 2 attacks. Argens are real tight. Can I just attack with 1 reasonably? If I attack like this, deal 3, put my opponent to 10, have 5, 8 power in play, plus 5, 13. Still lethal, but if my opponent randomly gains a little bit of life, it's a problem. Opponent can attack with 3 creatures, 6, 10, 14 damage, not lethal. 15 if Seasoned Dungeoneer attacks. I think I'm just going to take the extra attack. Not sure exactly what could go wrong in terms of life totals, but my opponent gaining a little bit of life definitely could do it. Let's forge up one of these and see if my opponent can do anything here. Without these Archons, they would be able to just kill me this turn. Handily. This is 6 mana to attack with these creatures. Seasoned Dungeoneer takes its trigger, dealing a Caracas. Go to 4. Oh shit. Caracas, bounce, Yorion. Yorion Seasoned Dungeoneer trap kills me. Fuck. That was a reason not to attack with an extra creature. I was playing around life gain, but that was on board. Yep. Yet. Yeah, I started ignoring the Undercity once I went, no, I don't lose to Forge. I need to be thinking about trap as well. That was a reason to not attack. Okay. That's fair. Yeah, so if I don't attack, I can soak up 4. Oh no, it beats me either way, right? I can't block the Seasoned Dungeoneer, so I soak up 4 damage. Or no, if I soak up 4, I'm only at -1, so if I soak up 4 damage, yeah, that does it. Fuck. Okay. Yep. There was something that beat me there. This is a great game. Elite Spellbinder becomes slightly more interesting once I know that my opponent has their own initiative cards. And when I'm on the play, I think Anointed Peacekeeper is so much better for like Aether Vial-based reasons. The Nadaar is awkward. The Nadaar is awkward, but I still think I keep it. My mana was a little pinched that time. Maybe I'm not supposed to be playing the Radiant Solars. This is an interesting hand. Chromox, Imprint, Nadaar, City, Spellbinder. There's a Cleric. Turn 2, Uncounterable Seasoned Dungeoneer. Archon of Absolution later on. This seems very good. Alright. Just like we drew it up. Wasteland will be very good against me, unfortunately, but there's not really anything that I can do about that with this hand. Ooh, this is a very good hand from my opponent. Doesn't have Wasteland, though. That's good. Does have very good cards. Is the Vial the thing that I'm taking? The Stoneforge Mystic is easily the scariest thing in the hand. It's like Stoneforge backed up with an initial removal spell, too. I might need to take the Stoneforge. I can't really beat Kaldra right now. I don't think I can beat Kaldra and Batterskull right now. Okay. Take Stoneforge. Call it a turn. Hope my opponent doesn't draw Wasteland specifically. Put Seasoned Dungeoneer into play and go from there. Yep. Good Vial is good. Chromox not really what I'm looking to draw here. Guess I'll just put this on Human. Human and Cleric are both very reasonable. With the deck configuration the way it is currently, I probably have more Clerics. Or Dragon Knight, you're a Cleric. You're an Angel. I just go Archon. That way if Chromox randomly eats it to something, I can still cast this later. But I'm about to get a basic plane, so like, this is all minutia. And it probably isn't actually super relevant. Alright, Sacrifice City. Play Seasoned Dungeoneer. Grab a basic. I've already made my land drop. Attack for 3-ish damage. I will continue to hit land drops, which means that this Archon is going to get into play. Pile goes up. I know my opponent has Source of Plowshares, so my Seasoned Dungeoneer probably eats it in this turn cycle. Yeah, and they don't let me untap at all with that, for sure. Because if I randomly have some sort of ephemerate effect, it is an absolute disaster. I think I am trying to kill my opponent fast. I will Forge. Oh, that's very good here. I'm going to make my attack first and then play the Archon. 5 damage. Opponent goes to 12. This Archon has been really impressive against the mono white deck, like surprise Pikachu face, right? Alright, good stuff. So, notably the difference between Elite Spellbinder here and the Anointed Whoosy What's It is that, like, with Elite Spellbinder, the card is taken out of their hand. Whereas with Anointed Peacekeeper, you look at the hand and choose a card. So, like, that's a big difference for the purposes of Aether Vial specifically. With Trap going off on my upkeep, my opponent is effectively at 7. It can Flicker Wisp my Elite Spellbinder, which is a play. Yeah, they got to do that. But then I get this trigger again. Alright, so Batterskull is now more expensive. This now trades with Flicker Wisp. Absolutely trap. Absolutely trap. Okay. Swing in with both. Force the trade. Otherwise my opponent's just dead next turn. And just continue to ride the initiative here. I think that's absolutely fine. Alright. Opponent is going to 4. And I think I am outracing Batterskull here. So I know my opponent can go 4 mana for a Stoneforge this turn. And my opponent does do that. Ooh, Jitte is good. That might force me to not attack this turn, depending on what I draw. All mana. That's unfortunate. Ultimately, I have a protection from white creature, so I can just chill. That puts my opponent to 1. Then they just get Jitte counters and kill my creature. Yeah, so I have to hold back. We're gonna do a little bluff. Now it's not really an effective bluff, but go ahead and put this on elemental. Pass the turn here. Getting to Throne of the Dead 3 next turn probably wins me this game. If my opponent has randomly drawn Kaldra as their exact draw for this turn, and it has to be their draw this turn, like, life is awkward for me. Yep. Right, that's Yori into hand. That happens next turn. Throne of the Dead 3 happens right now, though. Okay. Nadaar is actively not good. Seasoned Dungeoneer sometimes kills my opponent. I probably just take Solitude. Solitude, remove the Stoneforge, attack my opponent to 2, have a pro-white creature. That's probably fine. Let's do that. Okay, and that's good enough to win the match. That was an awesome game. One of my favorites of maybe the last month or so. Okay, final round here. Opening hand is decisively medium. It's just like not very fast. It's like relatively safe against a fair deck, but I think I'd rather look for some acceleration of some kind. And this qualifies. My plan is this tapped into this Thalia, into this Seasoned Dungeoneer. I think I get rid of the second Ancient Tomb. It's just like a whole lot of life loss. And tapped land, go. It's not the blistering speed that an initiative deck can move at. It's probably still an acceptable opening hand. Urborg from our opponent. Album. Okay, so this is an Urborg deck that also contains Urza's Saga. That's what I have gathered thus far. Could be Pox. Oh, right, we are now in Urborg makes everything awful to tap for mode. That's fine. I make it so that my opponent can't small Pox this turn if they are playing Pox, and that's kind of a huge deal. Throwing them off curve means that I can play Seasoned Dungeoneer and get an extra land before I have to start sacrificing any creatures. Castle Locthwain. Looks like Pox. Smells like Pox. Innocent blood. There's Pox. Pox in the water, folks. So I think I go this route and just get this started. I imagine the initiative is an absolute pain in the butt for my opponent to deal with. I'm probably going down the right side in this matchup. I reserve the right to change my mind, but I think I'm going down the right side. It just produces an extra body, which is a huge deal if my opponent does actually have smallpox. Okay, there's Urza Saga. All right. I believe going down the right side is correct here. I would just like to do a live draw this turn. Ooh, Anointed Peacekeeper on Urza Saga is really good. Bottom that. Top that. Go ahead and crash in for my damage with the Seasoned Dungeoneer. And explore. That is fantastic. I will absolutely top that card. By the way, Nadaar definitely earned its place on the thumbnail in that last round. Alright. Opponent's at 16. Go ahead and play a basic land. I don't need to worry about my stuff being uncounterable right now. I'll play... Yeah, there's... Oh, wow. 2 Smallpox. The name's still Urza Saga, or has the name switched to Smallpox? My opponent can just play a 4-mana Smallpox. I think even Smallpox me, realistically. Like, I can let them Smallpox me twice, and I just, like, lose 2 lands and move on with my life very easily. Yeah, because I stash, I still just get to play Nadaar next turn. Lose this board, though. I don't really want my opponent to have a couple of 4/4s. Wow, this turn's really tough. I thought them playing Urza Saga was indicative of them not having Smallpox, but that's just, like, not true. I think I still just name Urza Saga. It's a relatively insane amount of damage to their own board if they Smallpox twice. Yeah, and this is fine. They do have an Urborg, so they can tap this for the black mana to draw into a new card. We'll see how they value things, though. What is that? Karn's Silex. Can't pay life, cast spells, or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. X and exile this, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less, activate as a sorcery. Okay. That's kind of annoying. Activate only as a sorcery? Activate only as a sorcery. What a top deck. So they can do it for 4 or less and wipe my board. I'm probably supposed to hold Nadaar. I do have like Dark Ritual, Smallpox, one unknown. Now, what turn did they play Urborg? Urborg was very early in this game, right? I know about that already. Alright, I guess I can do my attacks and then hide for sure. This here, Thalia, is a creature. Matters for Smallpox. Next turn, in theory, I can do 2 creatures pretty easily. The below average draw at this point of the game that I think I just kind of put on top because of circumstances. I think I don't play a land that I can hold this in hand through 1 Smallpox. There's an Expedition map. What are we getting? Ancient Tomb? That lets you activate this for X is 4? You have something crazy like a Glacial Chasm? An Urza's Saga, okay. That's fine. You're gonna use Dark Ritual? Oh, okay, you're gonna Thoughtseize. I see. The line is Thoughtseize, then Dark Ritual, activate Karn Silex. Okay, sure. We'll blow up my treasure token. I think that's okay. And now Catacombs, make a creature, play a land, play a Thalia. Doesn't super matter what this goes on. Put it on Cleric. Alright. I'm pretty good versus kind of a naked Urza's Saga here. And it's a little dangerous for my opponent to just start casting Smallpox. They are going for it. One of these am I sacrificing? Probably the Skeleton token here. It's my better threat for sure. But I just don't want my opponent to be able to cast a second Smallpox here. Started in Urborg. Now we get to Throne of the Dead 3. Nadaar is awkward at this exact point, so I'll take a White Plume and get a basic Plains. Another White Plume is disgusting. We'll go Land Drop, White Plume. I will forge up my Thalia that can attack this turn, and then that puts my opponent to 1, meaning they can never cast a Smallpox, and I've got 3 creatures on board. I like what's going on my side of the battlefield for this matchup. I'm going to bring Lauren to deal with Urza Saga and Urza Saga tutor targets. I might play Radiant Solar just because of how good going through the initiative is against my opponent's deck. I don't think I'm interested in Chalice. Urza Plowshares is a pretty bad card in the matchup. It's just not a threat. But it super matters if my opponent plays an early Urza Saga. I don't know, maybe Radiant Solar on the draw is just not good enough. It's just like something that's going to get stuck in my hand if I don't play an early initiative creature. Maybe let's just board in 2 Laurens. So I can board this out. And what's the other play? I don't want to board out any mana sources here. They're so important for if I'm getting like Poxed and Wastelanded and whatnot, especially if anything weird like Crucible happens. You can board out 1 copy of a legendary creature. You can board out 1 Solitude, actually. Actually, Solitude's probably better than Plow. Keep 1 Plow. 5 answers to Urza Saga token, 7 counting Lauren. Yeah, okay. Very unsure about this opening hand. I can start playing threats on turn 2, and I have 4 lands. I don't have a piece of acceleration outside of Ancient Tomb. I think the hand's still probably fine. Like, if I can avoid mulliganing against this deck, I would like to do that. But it's possible. Like, I'm just supposed to try to go faster than this. I have 8 draws to just have a turn 1 play, though. So, I don't know. That's an awkward turn 2 play that I don't really want to do. Like, I don't want to enter a dungeon that's not the Undercity at all possible. Okay. That's acceptable. Kept a land heavy hand for a reason. Okay, cool. This is all that I'm looking for here. Go ahead and put this on Cleric. And as soon as I take the initiative, Nadaar is insane. We're probably hoping to dodge like a Hymn to Turok type card this turn. Yeah, I'm happy with this current situation. I even have a Solitude that I can pitch cast if I need to deal with that thing after my opponent plays a removal spell. So I'm very good with this turn. My opponent went there turn 2 without actually playing anything. That two wasted mana is such a big deal here. That is getting destroyed by Lauren. Innocent Blood is fine. Now my opponent's going to animate this in hopes of getting in. They are going to be very sad about how this next turn cycle goes. Okay. So I Lauren my opponent, I make a land drop. I blow up Urza Saga. My opponent's down 2 lands. I still will be able to get back to 4 for Seasoned Dungeoneer, unless my opponent like wastelands me or smallpoxes me afterwards. So I think I actually pitch the Seasoned Dungeoneer here, just so I can play the card that takes fewer resources. I'll be going down the right side here. I can make another skeleton body. Ooh. I don't think I take the second Lauren. This is probably an above average draw. All right. But who will pox the poxers? It's me. I will pox them. I have now destroyed 2 of my opponent's lands. It is probably pretty devastating. Alright. These lands are now slightly better for me. Him is good for my opponent. Nice. I will be going to my stash, picking up some treasure. Well, I didn't really want a second one. I'm pretty okay with it. Like, my opponent is playing a whole bunch of edict effects. I think I do just take the damage here. No, Herborg. Alright. We'll venture. Make a skeleton. Pass the turn. I can make us both draw a card here. I don't think that favors me. Yeah, let's not. Awkward. Alright, Elite Spellbinder. Smallpox. Plague Engineer. Yeah, okay, we're done. We're done, folks, and that's a 4-1 finish with this deck. Alright, the scoreboard is good. We got a 4-1, but what is the overall verdict on Nadaar Selfless Paladin? I believe that this is a technically playable legacy card, but I don't believe that this is better than the things that already exist in this deck list. Mono White Initiative deck list has been highly tuned, and even though there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of metagame back and forth about some of the things in the deck list, such as whether or not Chalice of the Void should be in the main deck or the sideboard, ultimately, I think the awkwardness associated with this card and like sometimes not being able to play it early, or you go into the wrong dungeon, or not being able to attack with it immediately after you like complete the initiative before you're in the Undercity, I think those things are making this card fall on the wrong side of playability. Like, the power level is correct, but the hoops that you need to jump through to make this thing work aren't quite good, I don't think. We, I believe, never drew a Radiant Solar in the entire league, so I can't really comment on that, but generally speaking, I think I feel the same way as I do about that. You know, I think, you know, the deck is just better with a few more copies of Swords to Plowshares and the other normal stock cards. But, like, I'm very glad that I tried this out, because I learned that venturing doesn't take the initiative, and that's something that I probably would have missed in Paper Magic, as like venturing into the Undercity and having the initiative are often ending up being the same thing. All right, folks, I really hope you enjoyed. I had an absolute blast piloting this one. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like on the way out. If you have any thoughts about deck building or anything, please throw those in the comments. And if you need to complain about the initiative being too good, trust me, I get it. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya.